Call this public hearing to order regarding case 2022-11MA, major adjustment to an existing PUD. The applicant is Landmark Recovery of Louisville, LLC, and the location is 4650 East Galbraith Road, Cincinnati 45236. The proposed use is inpatient substance use disorder facility. Is that abuse or use?
Substance use disorder
Use facility. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, you want to give us a little background on this, Kyle?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Again, this is case number 2022-11MA. The applicant has submitted a proposal for an inpatient substance use disorder facility. Representing Landmark Recovery tonight is Michelle Lovert, and with her is Randy Merrill from MSP, who will be doing the presentation. So the site that we're looking at is at 4650 East Galbraith Road. The site map shows it highlighted in red. This is on the north side of East Galbraith Road, in between Kenwood Road to the east and Pine Road to the west, kind of north and west of Jewish Hospital. So the property is currently zoned DD, which is Planned Multi-Residence District. Surrounding properties to the north is DD, Planned Multi-Residence District, which is actually a multifamily apartment complex. To the south, east, and west is Planned Office District, with the majority of the users of these facilities being medical office. Again, as I stated, to the south and to the east is Jewish Hospital. So this is certainly turned into a a medical office corridor. The original user of the site, or if not original, at least the prior user of the site, was Carriage Court, which was a nursing home providing memory care services. Okay. The site is 3.58 acres with 300 feet of frontage along East Galbraith Road. It's generally flat, sloping towards East Galbraith Road. The current ISR is 0.65. Originally, no exterior alterations were proposed by the applicant, but with a recent update to the plan, there is some increase in asphalt parking area. So that will adjust the, that will increase the ISR a few points, but not significantly.
Okay. Where would that parking be, in the rear?
I'll show that on the new site plan. So this is the original site plan that was approved, I believe in, let's see, I think this is the final plan that was approved in 2004, where they added the direct entrance, because it originally did not have direct access to Galbraith Road. The revised site plan shown here, recently produced by MSP, shows a little bit of an increase in parking. This is actually, the right is to the north, so this curved parking area is extended further around this radius, and there may be, I believe there's some infill in this northern corner as well. So again, some increase in ISR, but it has not been fully calculated. Okay. As we stated, the applicant is proposing to convert an existing 119-bed nursing home facility into a 160-bed inpatient substance use disorder treatment facility. I'm going to go ahead and read the majority of my staff report into the record. So the history on this site: Hamilton County Commissioners passed resolution number 9-71 in 1997. Excuse me, that should be 97-1 in 1997 for the change of zoning from B single-family residential to DD planned multifamily residential. As part of the resolution, conditions were placed on the property, including Two, that stated access will only be through a service road, and that the current driveway will be taken out when the service road is completed. Carriage Court of Kenwood applied to reopen the driveway in 2001. The Sycamore Township Zoning Commission recommended denial. The applicant removed the request prior to the Sycamore Township Trustee hearing. The entry drive was later approved as a major adjustment by case 2004-06MA. Zoning compliance review. As an existing double-letter PUD development, zoning compliance is determined by PUD standards and the underlying zoning, DD, Planned Multi-Residence District. Approved plans state that the net floor area of the building is approximately 64,000 square feet on 3 floors, and the applicant's proposed 160 bed, which would totally provide for the proposed 160 beds for inpatient care. Change of use. The applicant is seeking to modify an approved PUD to allow for the additional use of a substance use disorder treatment facility with 160 beds providing inpatient care. The applicant has stated that a variety of treatments, ranging from medical detoxification, clinical programming, group therapy, individual therapy, and continuous medical care would take place on site. Outpatient services would potentially be operated from another facility within the area and operated outside of the scope of this planning review. Based on the applicant's statements of the proposed use and the restrictions of the DD zoning district, the use is most consistent with characteristics of a hospital as defined by the zoning resolution. In applicant's revised submittal of September 27, 2022, applicant states that the proposed use is not included in the Sycamore Township zoning resolution. However, the applicant's specific use is defined in the resolution under halfway house. The applicant's request for a major adjustment to the PUD considers appropriate uses within the underlying zoning district. A halfway house would require a rezoning and is outside of the scope of the current review. However, it should be noted that a zone change would be inconsistent with the recently adopted land use plan, create an instance of spot zoning, and further exacerbate a significant parking deficit in the applicant's proposal. Pertinent definitions of the Sycamore Township zoning resolution are appended to this report for consideration. Parking. Based on the net floor area and beds, parking standards are applied as follows. As a hospital use, 1 parking space per bed. In this instance, that would require 160 beds. The original site is providing 63 spaces, which comes out to just over a 60% deficit. The revised site plan, as submitted on September 27th, would provide for 85 parking spaces, which reduces that deficit to 46.9%. Variance request. Variances are governed by Chapter 21 of the zoning resolution, and the authority of the Zoning Commission and Board of Trustees to review such approvals is acknowledged in Section 18-6, Coordinated Review and Approval of Applications. Chapter 21 has been appended to this report for consideration. Standards for variance approval are outlined in Section 21-6. The applicant submitted a statement regarding the available on-site parking compared to their needs and sought a variance for the parking requirements from the Zoning Commission on September 12, 2022. The Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend denial of the applicant's proposal and the variance request on the grounds that the variance was too significant and the use too intense for the available parking. Applicant's submittal of request for reasonable accommodation on September 27, 2022 requested consideration for granting a variance to parking requirements from a hospital use to a nursing home use on the grounds that a reasonable accommodation must be granted under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Staff has reviewed the request and provides comments as follows. Applicant errs in suggesting that the Township zoning resolution does not specifically provide criteria for the proposed use. As stated above, the proposed use can be defined as a halfway house and regulated as such under the current resolution. Staff has determined that the proposed use can also fit the definition of a hospital, which is consistent with the current zoning and can be approved as a major adjustment of the existing PUD. This interpretation is to the benefit of the applicant, as utilizing the specific definition of halfway house would require a greater number of parking spaces and prohibit the use from the existing zoning district. Applicant's request for reasonable accommodation makes no justification for utilizing the nursing home parking standard while providing no substantive connection between the proposed use of the site and the resolution's definition of a nursing home. The uses are fundamentally different, providing different services, levels of care, and are not subject to the same licensure requirements by the state of Ohio. For these reasons, it is wholly inappropriate to grant a reclassification of use solely for the fact that the parking calculation works for the applicant. Such a reclassification would be arbitrary, capricious, and in conflict with the resolution's authorized variances and standards for variances. Staff is open to considering reasonable accommodations, but first, the request itself should be reasonable. A reasonable accommodation request could be grounds for granting a variance. In this case, a maximum of 25% reduction in parking can be applied to an appropriate parking standard. However, a maximum reduction would not relieve the deficit created by the applicant's proposal. Here's a formula that takes into account the 25% parking reduction, which is the maximum allowed by our zoning resolution. So again, a hospital is 1 parking space per bed. The required 160 spaces reduced by 25% would be 120. Provided spaces currently are 63, so we now have a 47.5% deficit. And finally, the revised site plan with 85 parking spaces would still have a deficit of 29.2%. Other site considerations. Applicant's revised submittal provides for an additional 22 parking spaces and the additional pavement to accommodate those spaces. The site's ISR will increase, but it is unknown at this time by how much. The stormwater detention is not proposed to be altered, but has not been reviewed by pertinent outside agencies. County agencies, such as the engineer, planning and development, public works, soil and water agencies, soil and water conservation district, etc. These comments should be reviewed prior to any final approval of site improvements. Land use. The adopted land use plan calls for the properties in question to be used as office, and proposed use as a hospital is not in conflict. The plan as submitted by the applicant requires approval of a major adjustment to the PUD. Zoning Commission. The Zoning Commission held a public hearing on the applicant's case on August 8th, 2022, where the applicant's original proposal of a 136-bed inpatient and outpatient facility was reviewed. Upon hearing the Commission's concerns regarding the intensity of the proposed use and lack of available parking, the applicant requested the case be tabled. The case was continued on September 12th, 2022, where the applicant's revised proposal of a 160-bed inpatient-only facility was considered. After hearing the revised staff report, applicant's presentation and comments from members of the public, the Commission voted 3-0, with 3 members in attendance, to recommend denial of the applicant's proposed major adjustments to the PUD for a 160-bed inpatient-only drug and alcohol addiction rehabilitation facility. The Commission's decision was based on concerns related to the intensity of the proposed use and the availability of sufficient on-site parking to meet any required parking standards. Staff comments. While the change of use to a hospital facility is consistent with the land use plan and zoning district provisions, the subject site existing parking is significantly lacking for the proposed use per the Sycamore Township zoning resolution. While the applicant has the right to request the variance, a hardship does not exist for staff to make a favorable recommendation, nor does the consideration of practical difficulty standards resolve the higher intensity use being proposed from the substantial parking shortage. The applicant's request for reasonable accommodation under Title II of ADA is lacking in justification for their desired interpretation of township standards. The site is so significantly deficient of required spaces that even a maximum 25% reduction in spaces by variance would not alleviate the issue, even with the addition of 22 new spaces. Additionally, adjacent properties do not have parking spaces in excess of required standards for a leasing or shared parking arrangement as proposed previously. Finally, the increase in ISR will necessitate review by outside agencies which have not been afforded the time to review, and approval should not be considered without the informed comments of county offices. Based on the provisions of the Sycamore Township zoning resolution, staff recommends denial.
Okay, well, anybody who is planning on testifying here in the public hearing, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you.
I just want to make a note that that's also for the residents. If you wish to speak tonight, you're going to have to get sworn in. So if anybody wants to speak tonight, I trust you. Some of you probably do. So if you would please stand up and want to swear them in, Larry.
Sure.
Anybody that wants to speak tonight?
Raise your right hand. Okay. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this public hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. Okay, the applicant is here. Would you like to give us any additional information you may have? And give us, if you start with your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Yes, my name is Michelle Lubert. My address is 720 Cool Springs Boulevard, Franklin, Tennessee. And I'm the Director of Sourcing and Zoning for Landmark Recovery. And I have a little presentation. Do I just click the...
Yeah, it's the right arrow forward.
So today, I will be providing you with an overview of Landmark Recovery's mission and programming and facility-specific information, as well as why we have chosen Sycamore Township to expand our treatment facilities in Ohio, which include 2 facilities currently operating in Euclid and Willard, and facilities in Marysville, Westerville, Wintersville, Lancaster, and Chardon, anticipated to open by the end of 2023. So Landmark Recovery was born out of a family's firsthand exposure to the prevalence of addiction and the need to move out of state to find available, comprehensive treatment. It all started with a 9-year-old boy and his mother living in Louisville when she sought treatment for alcoholism. Because of the lack of local treatment options at the time, she had no choice but to move to Florida to get help, which meant her son would be uprooted from his life in Louisville. The son who moved with his mother so that she could receive the care she needed is now the CEO of Landmark Recovery and has made it his mission to provide licensed, accredited, and evidence-based and compassionate treatment programs throughout the country within 2 hours of each major metropolitan, and to save 1 million lives over the next 100 years. Landmark has plans to open 2 facilities a month for the next several years until this mission is realized. Landmark Recovery was founded in 2016 and is privately funded, family-owned company currently operating 13 facilities located in Kentucky, Nevada, Indiana, Oklahoma, Colorado, Tennessee, and Ohio. Landmark specializes in providing the highest quality evidence-based services and programs for those affected by drug and alcohol addiction. We are pleased to share that we have recently graduated our 13,500 patients. So many times a stay at Landmark's residential treatment facility begins with medical detoxification. Upon admission to our detox unit, Landmark staff performs a comprehensive history and physical exam on the patient. Further, within 24 hours of admittance to our detox unit, the intake clinician or primary addiction counselor completes a biopsychosocial evaluation, and using the results in conjunction with information learned from the comprehensive history assessment and physical exam, compiles a master treatment plan for the duration of the patient's stay. One thing to note is that we do not use nor do we distribute methadone. While we detox patients from the drug, we do not use it as part of our treatment protocol. Rather, we use drugs such as Suboxone to aid in detox. Depending on the severity and type of substance addiction, the average stay in our detox unit is between 5 to 10 days. Our inpatient residential treatment program is inclusive of medical detox, and the average stay is between 28 to 35 days. Each day, our patients attend a full 10 to 12-hour day of programming, which includes individual and group therapy and supervised recreation. Our curriculum addresses trauma, life skills, boundary setting, and coping skills focused on sobriety management. Patients work closely with patient advocates to create discharge planning that addresses return to work, ongoing sobriety support, community integration, and continuous medical care. So a typical day in Landmark's residential treatment program starts with breakfast at 8 a.m., followed by morning group therapy, which includes our Seeking Safety program, followed by our Smart Recovery Therapy, Expressive Therapy, Understanding Trauma Programming, Meditation, Smart Recovery Meetings, Team Building Recreational Time, and ending with nightly group therapy. So the following points are key factors that will apply to the proposed facility. Landmark does not accept walk-in patients, so patients must complete our admissions process prior to arriving at our facility at a scheduled date and time, and are greeted by a patient advocate and walked into our building to begin the intake process. Visitors are not allowed unless invited and approved for a family treatment session. They too are escorted to and from the building and may not bring belongings with them. Visitor hours are not scheduled during peak hours. Visitor hours are scheduled only on weekends and in very limited circumstances. For the most part, Landmark has transitioned to telehealth for family therapy sessions, and in most instances, these sessions are scheduled and held via the Teams platform to allow for flexibility with family members' schedules and locations. Our parking lot is used for staff and approved visitor parking only. Applicants' patients are not permitted to leave a vehicle on the site during the course of treatment. Our facilities are staffed and monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and patients are under continuous care and supervision. There's no idle time at Landmark. Our facilities are secured with state-of-the-art equipment, including card-only access, delayed egress door alarms, staff and video monitored interior and exterior cameras. Substance use disorder facilities by law cannot be locked down. Should a patient express their desire to leave treatment, we have evidence-based practices and protocols in place to address their concerns and to successfully maintain their patient status. Landmark Recovery's Against Staff Advice 24-hour rule states that any patient that expresses an intent to leave prior to recommendation of the treatment team should be encouraged to stay for an additional 24 hours to encourage additional dialogue between the patient and staff regarding their decision. If the final decision is to leave the facility, we work with their loved ones and community resources so that they leave with an appropriate safety and support plan and proper transportation. Additionally, the proposed facility is subject to regulation by the state and federal government and annual auditing by the Joint Commission, which has developed an evaluation process that can help healthcare organizations such as Landmark Recovery measure, assess, and improve performance and safety measures. For accreditation, the Joint Commission standard requires behavioral health organizations such as Landmark Recovery to develop a security management plan based on the facility's circumstances, which would include how the security risks will be assessed and mitigated and how the facility will be secured. Our growth strategy is based on state, county, and municipal addiction statistics, as well as a needs assessment within the geographic service area. So according to data collected by the CDC in 2020, Ohio ranks 5th in the United States for drug overdose deaths at 5,204, amounting to 47.2 deaths per 100,000 population. The CDC launched the multi-year Overdose Data to Action OD2A cooperative agreement in September 2019 with 66 recipients, comprising state, territorial, county, and city health departments, of which the Ohio Department of Health and the Hamilton County General Health District are a part of. The OD2A focuses on understanding and tracking the complex and changing nature of the drug overdose epidemic and highlights the need for seamless integration of data into prevention strategies. One of the several prevention strategies that both the Ohio Department of Health and the Hamilton County General Health District have committed to implementing are to raise awareness and reduce stigma and to support healthcare providers and health systems with drug overdose prevention and response, including expanding the use of evidence-based prescribing and treatment practices such as that of landmark recovery. According to the Ohio Department of Health, Hamilton County ranks 19th out of Ohio's 88 counties for unintentional drug overdose deaths between 2015 and 2020, averaging 45.7 deaths per 100,000 people. The many Cincinnati area jurisdictions have developed many aligning and collaborative goals with the Cincinnati Community Health Needs Assessment, the Hamilton County Addiction Response Coalition, and the State Health Improvement Plan of Ohio, which include improving availability of access to substance abuse treatment. In 2021, the Hamilton County Addiction Response Coalition's annual report outlines the state of the addiction crisis. The need for rehabilitation and prevention services can be clearly understood in the context of impact on many community issues, including but not limited to crime, poverty, and physical health, and in the saddening factors found in the Addiction Crisis's annual report, including in Hamilton County, there were 4,056 resident deaths as a result of overdose in the last 10 years. In 2021, 205 of the 212 cases investigated by the Hamilton County Heroin Task Force were heroin opioid deaths. The report notes that this was a 17% increase in overdose deaths from 2020. And 28% of the population in Hamilton County will experience an addiction within their lifetime. The report also states that those seeking treatment for co-occurring addiction and behavioral health issues by way of the emergency department of hospitals is overcrowding emergency rooms because there are not enough inpatient beds. The Ohio Council of Behavioral Health and Family Service Providers report from August 2022 reveals that only 40% of Ohioans receive treatment for behavioral health issues, and that those with substance abuse disorders is far worse, with only 10% of those in need receiving treatment, with the biggest barrier to treatment being the lack of timely, quality, and affordable treatment services in many communities, especially in rural areas. So some common misconceptions. Studies by the Recovery Research Institute, ResearchGate, Public Health Journal, and fact-checked news articles have concluded that addiction treatment centers do not raise neighborhood violence, spending funds on drug treatment saves on crime, and violent crime near drug treatment clinics are lower than other community businesses. Studies by the National Bureau of Economic Research and published in MarketWatch and Barron's has also found that substance abuse treatment centers do not lower property values. We have chosen this specific site as it is in line with the type of properties we look for, traditionally those that have a previous life as a subacute medical facility, assisted living, or nursing home. The layout is easily adapted for our use, allowing us to keep construction costs down, thus ultimately maintaining a fair fee schedule for our patients. Formerly an assisted living memory care facility, according to the most recent zoning map of Sycamore Township, the proposed use is very much in line with the character of the immediate area of the adjacent properties. Surrounding properties include Jewish Hospital Medical Building, Cincinnati General Surgeons, Mercy Health, the Heart Institute, Kenwood Surgery Center, and Kenwood Breast Center, to name a few. Additionally, this adjustment will not increase in scale or intensity from the existing use. Some facility-specific information include the following. The facility size is approximately 64,000 square feet. We provide services to veterans and to those who are covered by commercial insurance or private pay. Proposed occupancy of the site is 160 inpatient beds. It will create at least 103 new jobs. The estimated average salary is between $55,000 and $65,000 annually. The tax revenue realized through payroll and property is estimated to be more than $500,000. Now I will shift my focus to address concerns about parking, as that is what seemed to be the main reason for the commission's recommended denial. The facility has 63 available parking spaces according to the site plan on record. The township has classified the proposed use as a hospital under the Sycamore Township zoning resolution, as there is no use specifically for the proposed use under the resolution. The resolution provides that appropriate parking requirements for a hospital use are 1 parking space per bed. This means that Landmark would need 160 parking spaces, suggesting major deficiency with the existing 63 spaces. Landmark has previously requested a variance due to the fact that the resolution does not include a use specific to the proposed use, and Landmark is not the same as a traditional hospital. Landmark does not have transitory patients and visitors on its premises. Further, the parking requirements for a hospital use should not apply to the proposed use for a variety of reasons. Landmark's patients are not permitted to leave a vehicle on site during the course of treatment. The maximum number of employees that would be on site at the property during peak hours is 56. And visitor hours are not scheduled during peak hours, but only in limited circumstances on the weekends. And that is mainly because we've transitioned to telehealth for family therapy sessions. So this is a little overview of the staff counts. And so as you can see, during peak hours, our maximum number of staff on site would be 56. Additionally, Landmark has taken measures to attempt to alleviate the commission's concerns regarding parking, including receipts of a letter of intent from the owners of the adjacent property to the west to lease additional parking spaces as needed, up to 9 additional spaces. And we've altered our business plan to eliminate the provision of our intensive outpatient programming. And now Landmark, given the variance was recommended denial, we have requested a reasonable accommodation under the ADA. And we've requested that Landmark be permitted to follow the parking requirements of a nursing home under the ordinance, which would require 83 parking spaces. So under the ordinance, the nursing home and convalescent home requirements would require 1 for every 6 beds and then 1 for each staff member during peak hours. Accordingly, Landmark has now proposed the addition of 22 parking spaces to the site to comply with these calculations as reflected on the site plan prepared by civil engineer and architect Randy Merrill. I'd also like to note that our proposal was provided to Hamilton County Project Engineer Ben Poole, Hamilton County Traffic Engineer Jeff Newby, and Sycamore Township Fire Inspector Doug Moret, who expressed no immediate concerns regarding the proposed project as it relates to infrastructure, traffic, and fire safety. The information presented to you tonight, along with our application and supplements, we feel have met the township's requirements for approval of a major adjustment to an existing PUD. We've demonstrated that our facility would be located in a compatible healthcare sector and comparable to the existing land use, and that the existing infrastructure will be adequate and will not require additional modification. That through the severe prevalence of substance abuse in the state of Ohio, identified by the state, county, and federal governments, there continues to be a need, the economic viability for substance use disorders and co-occurring behavioral health services, and the proposed facility aligns with the prevention strategies pursued by these jurisdictions. The proposed facility and addition to existing parking will meet our needs and cause minimal disruption during the conversion process. That the proposed use will help to achieve the economic development goals of Sycamore Township and provide economic benefit to the area through job creation and tax revenue, and that the proposed facility will not be detrimental to the surrounding landowners. As such, I respectfully request that the Board of Trustees approve Landmark Recovery's application for a major adjustment to the existing PUD and corresponding reasonable accommodation requests regarding parking.
Okay, thank you. But now, we have residents here that would like to speak, so I'd like to hear from the residents, and we can come back to questions from the individuals after that.
Was Randy going to speak?
Randy, were you going to speak?
I was going to speak only if you needed me to.
Okay.
I think he's available to answer any
Yep,
questions that you guys
absolutely.
may have.
Absolutely, that's fine. So, do we have people signed up to speak, Skylar?
Yes, sir. Susan Weeks. Ma'am, did you put your address on the other form? Okay.
I'm not clear if I'm to be speaking about the zoning variance or my overall ideas or thoughts about the whole,
You can speak about anything you want.
okay, oh, really? How about the Redstone?
No, we don't want to do that.
Nobody
I'm
wants to hear
Susan-
about that.
I'm Susan Weeks. I live 2 blocks across right across from the street for the proposed building. My main concern, I've taught nursing. I'm a retired nursing professor. I've taught and worked in my profession for 44 years, and that included many areas of nursing, including psychiatric nursing, community health nursing, pediatrics, whatever. So, and I've also experienced a lot of practice with mentally ill and addicted people with addictions. I volunteered at the drop-in center, if you remember that. It was a center, we had a nurse clinic there for people who were homeless, and then I volunteered at the new center for women and for men, and I still do volunteer work for the homeless women. So I'm quite acquainted with people who have addictions. It's estimated when we were working at the drop-in center that about 50% of them were mentally ill, and it probably has gone up since then. My big concern is that the 160 beds of severely, I would think, fairly severely addicted people, and many of them having mental illness. Addiction is a mental illness. And it's not been mentioned really about the neighborhood, the neighborhood homes and the 250 condos that are close by. We have wonderful homes in the area, but it's not really been mentioned. Just across the street in the whole area, wonderful neighborhoods. And although safety doesn't seem to be of concern to you all, safety is of great concern to us. Great concern to one of the greatest concerns to us in such a dense residential facility as proposed for 160 mentally ill, addicted people. Safety is a great concern. And we've had increased crime already in the neighborhood. So we don't want anybody to conclude is that we don't want you all. The residents do not, clearly, strongly, do not want you to enter our area. We do not want you. It's not, I think we all support treatment, but this is not the place for it. This is not the area for it. Not in this highly residential neighborhood. We do not want you.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I make a statement?
Yes,
for the record?
yes.
I know that the trustees appreciate your thoughts and your concerns. I do need to say something for the record, however, because this is a zoning hearing, and I know you brought that up when you first started to speak. There are, unless we have hard evidence on issues that you have discussed, which we don't, this is a zoning hearing, and the trustees cannot consider the types of things that you were bringing up about the type of patients and the possibility of crime and those things. They can only consider facts that are sworn to under oath and that deal with the zoning issues.
I appreciate that was my question at the very beginning.
You're entitled to give us your feelings, sir, on this project. You were entitled to do that, and you did.
Okay.
You know, what he's saying is we cannot make that decision based on, our decision based on the fact that we don't like the use.
And you're talking about the zoning commission, or are you talking about
The trustees.
Is that right? Interesting.
Okay, who's up next?
I'm saying that as a law director from a strictly legal perspective, okay?
Hopefully you're all heard, I said.
Okay, next is, and I'll apologize if I can't read these names. Is it Michelle, is it Grains?
No, it is not, sir. It's
I apologize.
That's quite all right. It's acceptable. There's been a lot said, and I don't want to be redundant,
Nope, you're
because
fine.
I'm tired.
Will you clarify your name for the record?
Michelle Graves.
Graves, thank you, ma'am.
Graves, 4686 Happiness Way. I'm a happy resident of that wonderful community. And since, as the attorney at law so eloquently stated, we have to remain focused on the issue at hand, which is the zoning. And I would simply like to say that fact and wisdom should rule in your consideration. That's balance. And I would suggest to you that when we began this original conversation, it was about changing from a hospital space requirement to a halfway house more recently. And I would like us to hold to what it is. It is a hospital. I would like to hold to that. That is a fact based upon their own presentation. It is a hospital. Now, wisdom would say, wisdom, back to fact and wisdom, balance, gentleman and lady. Wisdom would say, are we prepared to deal with that type of a hospital with traditional space requirements? And I would say to you, because we're not interested in changing the interpretation of the law, but we are interested in adhering to what has already been determined. I consider this a hospital. I would hope you would hold to the requirements as a hospital by law, and that the request be denied. I have no further comments. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, who's next?
Is it Rita Lambus?
Lambers.
Lambers, thank you, ma'am.
This is my first time coming here, so
You're good.
Really?
I'm trying to get all the facts straight.
You're fine.
What I've heard.
Just give your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Rita Lambers, 7933 Frolic Drive. And I didn't know anything about your group, first time coming out here, so I was going through the Google type thing, see what kind of stuff. And I questioned some of the things that you were saying. It sounds like you don't want to be like your other facilities, at least from what I've been reading, or you're making this an exception. I agree with her on the hospital thing. Another thing, I have notes all over the place here. I heard you have 30 hours a week for therapy for the different people, the patients, and that includes exercise, alternative therapies, and group sessions. And in that group sessions, they also have family counseling. They'll bring whoever the person's going to live with, either a family or a friend or something, comes in and helps them with the counseling. Well, that's like extra parking. And you mentioned visitors are only allowed on weekends. Well, visitors in some of those organizations, they're specified. It's not these therapy sessions. So that would be extra people. And then I'm sitting here, you said family therapy would be telehealth. Well, I got news for you. Half the people, I went to one telehealth meeting, and the doctor didn't even have the right phone system. It's like I thought he was going to call me up on the screen. Everything was a mess. So I'm sitting here, telehealth, when you're dealing with this kind of, this group of people, it's a joke. At least, unless you have the physical, this junk at your house, it's a joke.
and I don't think many people do. And, let's see. Oh, yeah, I heard your visitation, you're allowed support animals, and some of the stuff they do, they're allowed to bring in music and stuff like that is that part of it too? Are you going to allow that at your facility? Animals?
Is she directing this at the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, just give us,
I've known this is my first meeting here,
Yep.
and I've been hearing all these rumors from everybody.
that's okay,
And
that's
so
okay.
I'm not sure what they're allowing and what they're not. But family counseling is one thing. She said telehealth, and I'm like, it can be family from what I read, or it can be somebody you're going to be living with, like friends and that kind of stuff. And so I kind of, and another thing about are you going to have, well, are they going to be aggressive? Sometimes these drug things, a lot of times the places have different floors, like and different rules per floor when it comes to how aggressive patients are. And I agree with somebody else that mentioned how aggressive, because some people on these drugs are more aggressive than others. And I question that. And I read where that on one of the articles, it said something about 35 to 45 was the average treatment time. And I think you were mentioning even days, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's something different. And, oh yeah, another thing I read where you take folks with active criminal warrants. Is
Rita?
that going to be at this facility?
Yeah, I would advise you, just raise the issues or say what
Okay.
you want to the board, and then.
Okay, then they go
when-
back to that.
When appropriate, they can do a Q&A with.
All right, these are
with the
5
applicant.
items I looked at other facilities that they have. And whether they're going to go against it or not, I really don't know. But I think this parking, 56 employees, and you only have 63, I think it's too close. I think they're going to have more family things and counseling things than they're really telling you about. And that's about it. I got a bunch of things marked down, but those are things that bother me. Oh, and is it adult? I don't know whether it's adults only or there's any children involved. According to what I read, it was adults only.
Okay,
And that's about it.
okay,
Anyway.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else on that list?
The only other person signed up is Mr. Randy Merrill. I'm assuming he's available for questioning.
Okay.
So.
Great. If nobody else wants to speak,
Yeah, I thought I signed in.
You may have signed on the other sheet.
Well, I signed in somewhere.
All right.
okay, well, come on up.
Come on up and.
Were you sworn in?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll add you to this list. Just give your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Carol Martini, 8098 Merrymaker, 45236. There was an article in the paper not too long ago about this same, not the same company, but a similar situation in Oregon where over 16,000 people were access to services. The only percentage that used it in a year's time was 0.85%. A total waste of time, total waste of money, and it did not help the Oregon situation at all. A thing came up on the screen that 56 employees are hired from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. What happens after 5 p.m.? How many nurses are there? How many whatever are there? At our last meeting, the statistics showed that they had 1 nurse for 60 beds after 5 p.m. No security from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. You can't lock down the people, so if there's no security, what's to keep those people in the facility? I went through this at the last meeting. I don't know if the trustees heard any of those speeches or talks or whatever, but I wrote a lot of stuff down. I don't want to rehash it all over again, but I'm concerned when they talk about, is it a hospital, a convalescent home, What is it? I don't think they have really stated as to what they're going to call it. They're going to call it what they want to get the number of parking spaces. That's my opinion. And to get the number of parking spaces, do they get more if it's a hospital? Do they get more if it's a convalescent home? Do they get more if it's an alcohol and drug rehabilitation center? I don't know. I had so many notes and I can't find them now. But anyway, my house is the closest to their facility. I live on Merrymaker. I live across the street from the facility on the other side of the fence that's on Galbraith Road. And I do not want these people in my backyard. As a matter of fact, if they get on the third floor with their binoculars, they can look into my kitchen window and my dining room. When they applied for this property, they said all of Galbraith Road was a hospital, businesses, doctors, and which it is. But then, for the residents, they went up on Kenwood Road, where those new apartments were in, and said those were their nearest residents. They do not own that property. They're renters. The people that own the property on Merrymaker, Frolic, Happiness Way, there's a whole little community back in there. And they did not mention us at all. What else? Basically, I don't want to repeat myself from the last time, but I'm totally against it. I do not want any of this stuff to go through. And I think all our neighbors say the same thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else on the list? Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we're going to close comments from the residents, and we're going to open up questions for or questions or comments with to Skylar. If anybody's got any questions to Skylar from his presentation. Anybody have anything?
I'll just ask, Skylar, you went through the parking requirements and what our code actually allows. You've heard the presentation from the applicant here. Has anything new developed from that? Has that changed anything, or is there just a disconnect here?
No, nothing. My current staff report stands on its own. The proposal has evolved somewhat over time. So, as different requests have come in, we've had to evaluate it in different ways. We have maintained throughout that it is most appropriately on this site defined as a hospital. The hospital requirement is one parking space per bed. That is consistent with multiple codes throughout the county. Hamilton County, even the city of Cincinnati. So there are other more strict codes within the county, but this is what has been determined as appropriate for us.
And you surveyed other townships in the county to look at their parking requirements for equivalent facilities?
Some other townships as well as municipalities in the region. Yes, sir. So.
Any other questions? Tracy, any questions of Scott?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So I do have a question as it relates to the applicant's submittal regarding, and this is probably to you, Larry.
Okay.
That reasonable accommodation, quote, must be granted under Title II of the ADA. Is that correct? So
Well,
you
that's
can-
not, that's just what they said. That's not what the law is.
I want you to expand on that.
Well, the law is that if an accommodation that is requested is reasonable and will not place an undue burden on the township, then it should be considered. From my understanding of what they've presented, and I don't believe they have a license to operate a nursing home, nor do I believe they have a certificate of need, so they're not a nursing home. So this hospital requires 160 parking spaces. If it's a halfway house, it would require over 200 parking spaces. So the most you can do as a variance under your zoning resolution is decrease it by 25%, which still doesn't get you close to what they're proposing. So a reasonable accommodation, in my view, is not to call something something that it isn't.
Exactly.
A reasonable accommodation could conceivably be a variance, knocking down the parking spaces that they're requiring, but your zoning resolution doesn't allow for more than 25%, and this is, not far off 50%.
Yes.
So that,
Okay. I just wanted you to clarify the must be granted under the ADA. Ms. Lubert, I will tell you this, that I've been with Sycamore Township for 28 years. I'm in my 17th year as trustee, and the remaining portion was in zoning. And I've never had anybody in 28 years come in here and suggest that we should call something that it's not. In this case, for me, if I was to not even see the staff report, I would assume that this was a halfway house. I would not assume it's even a hospital. So a hospital is quite an accommodation to your facility, because for you to suggest that we should be calling this a nursing home when you don't have under Ohio law, you have to have a license. You don't have that. Number one. Number two, you've never demonstrated a certificate of need for additional beds from 135 to 160. So for us for you to suggest that we should be accommodating you based on that, I've never seen anybody call it one thing when it's actually another. So I think a hospital is certainly an accommodation to you, because, quite frankly, I think, in my opinion, it is a halfway house. So, any questions for the applicant?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
No question. But thank you for your presentation. We all admire the mission you're on. Certainly, the question of whether this is a fit for our zoning code, and that's what we have to look at here, though. So, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, we will close the public hearing, and we will open up our meeting in 7 minutes. Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order. If everybody would please rise for our invocation by Chief Penny.
Heavenly Father, you have given us responsibility for this meeting for all that work here. Help us to take this responsibility with honesty and integrity, respecting the gifts that each brings to our common endeavors. Send us your Spirit to be with us in this meeting so the discussion and decisions that are before us will be infused with values we proclaim. We gratefully acknowledge your presence in our lives. You have entrusted us. We know that you are with us, and so we go forward with confidence. We also pray for those that have been devastated by recent natural disasters. We will remember those that have lost their lives suddenly. We will hold in our hearts the families forever changed by grief and loss, bring them consolation and comfort. Amen.
Everybody, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If Mr. Porter would note that all three trustees are present. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the September 20th public hearing and trustees meeting. We'll do, I guess we can do that simultaneously, can't we, Larry?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
In that case, I move we approve the minutes from the September 20th, 2022 public hearings, of which I believe there were 2 or 3, and the trustees meeting.
I second.
Motion is seconding. Further discussion. Mr. Porter.
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Swedman?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Skylar, do we have anybody signed up?
We do. It looks like there may have been some confusion between the two meetings, so if I call your name and you don't want to speak, that's fine. First is Ms. Susan Weeks. Okay.
You've all heard my concern about the safety concerns. I am also concerned about the quality of care, and I have no, I did not research anything about this corporation, this for-profit corporation, in terms of their information. But when I look at the staffing, so it's like 3 patients, 3 staff for 160 hospitalized patients or residents. 3 people who have to be in residence in the hospital, whatever it's called. That is really of serious concern as far as therapeutic care goes. I just have to add that. That is, and the salaries projected are really low. Really low. I have a granddaughter who just graduated from nursing school, and she got a $15,000 sign-on bonus, and in a year she'll get another $15,000 in addition to her salary. The salaries are really low for qualified therapeutic interventionists, really low. The other comment that I had is that looking at all of this, the projected income is $500,000, and I would hope that you trustees, that's really minuscule compared to the income for the township. And I would hope that you would consider the residents of the county's safety and whatever therapy and the quality of care, it is most important than a $500,000 income projected from this facility. I don't have anything else to say.
Thank you.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Skylar.
Next we have, I'll apologize in advance if I mispronounce. Is it Jean Russell?
Jean Breslin, but I'm not speaking tonight.
Jean Breslin?
These residents are speaking for me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Gene.
Ms. Carol Martini.
I said all I want to
Okay,
say.
thank you.
I want to turn down. Thank you.
All right. And Ms. Michelle Lovert, I'm assuming that was just the wrong sheet?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And then last on this list is, I'll apologize again, Karen Graysmeyer? Did I say that right? Graisner? Here. Oh,
Just they think she already left.
Steve, was that the lady on Salt Crest?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
was.
Okay. We discussed a property maintenance issue with her before the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. No, we have no one else, sir.
Okay, next item on the agenda, planning and zoning report. Skylar.
Oh, okay. Let me catch my breath here. All right. The first item on the agenda is a resolution concerning the case we just heard in public hearing. That's zoning case number 2022-11MA. The zoning staff has prepared multiple resolutions depending on trustees' discussion and outcome from that. So we are prepared to move forward with a resolution tonight if you so choose.
Okay, so what I think I'll do is see if there's a motion on this.
I move that, how are the resolutions captioned, Sally?
So we have, I'll go ahead and pull this
Resolution
one up.
approving or resolution
Yeah,
denying?
so we have a resolution approving a major adjustment, or we have a resolution denying a major adjustment to a PUD. Actually, that's the wrong one.
That's
I
the wrong one,
apologize.
yeah.
Hang on. There we go. So I can still pull up an approval, but a resolution denying case number 2022-11MA for a major adjustment to a PUD for landmark recovery of Louisville LLC in Sycamore Township and dispensing with a second reading.
I move we approve the resolution that Mr. Miller just presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion?
I'll just note in discussion, we held a public hearing earlier at 6 p.m. Heard input from residents, some over things we can consider, some over things that we can't consider in making a zoning decision, but it's always useful to hear what the community thinks. Mr. Barbier pointed out during that hearing what factors we're entitled to consider, and this matter does not meet the requirements of our zoning code for the type of facility it is. That's no criticism as to the mission of the group that's proposing it or what they do. It's a wonderful thing to provide rehabilitation services for people with addiction problems, but it's not something that fits within our zoning code as proposed, so I don't think we can approve it, and that's why I've moved to approve this resolution denying it.
I would simply add to that and amplify that. I certainly appreciate the need for treatment and recovery services and the work of Landmark. However, irrespective of that, what's in front of us is a zoning case, and the things that we have to take into consideration, have to factor in. I think we've heard from the staff report and from our law director that our land use plan speaks to this issue and this condition and this use. So does our zoning code. So has the zoning board, which has denied this 3-0 prior to coming to us as trustees. And we've heard the law director's explanation as to what we can and cannot consider. So for those reasons, my vote is also a no.
Okay. I just might add that everybody knows the difficulty we have in Kenwood with the amount of parking that's available and the limited amount of parking that's available, and how this kind of issue could easily flow over onto our private roads. When we consider a variance of this nature, the very first thing we're going to have at our next meeting is somebody coming back asking us for the same variance because we just gave it to the person before, or the business before. It's way too difficult on us. We have a difficult time as it is managing the parking in Kenwood. For us to suggest that it's a good idea to reduce it by 25% as an accommodation, so we have to do the same thing for the next person, it's way too difficult. We don't have the ability to do that. So unfortunately, again, I think the mission of Landmark is great, but this may not be the correct place for Landmark to land. So if there's no other discussion or comments, Larry, you have anything?
Yes, I want to make sure that we have a clear motion and a vote, because I think you said I move to approve the resolution denying, and then Tracy said I vote no. And I think we should.
Yes.
I think we
Fair
should
enough.
say it
Good point.
Fair enough,
right.
good point.
You may want to make a motion to adopt the resolution denying, and then everybody can vote. It sounds like everybody's going
Okay.
to vote
So
yes
would-
to that.
So,
Okay,
so if you want to
yeah.
withdraw your previous motion.
Sure,
and-
I will do that, and I instead move that the board adopt the resolution as presented by Mr. Miller, which is a resolution denying case number 2022-11MA.
I second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Okay,
This resolution will be printed out at break
okay.
for
Thank you.
signatures.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 6330 Cougar Mill Road nuisance property.
Yes, sir.
Skylar?
Okay. Property located at 6330 Cougar Mill. This is a repeat offender property. This is actually the property where we tore down the home. We've removed a junk vehicle from the property, and it's still it's still completely unmanaged. So property owner is unresponsive. Again, this is just showing kind of the laundry list of continual code enforcement that we have on the property. I have for you a resolution providing for and authorizing removal of vegetation, garbage, refuse, and other debris, and declaring a nuisance for the property located at 6330 Cougar Mill Road, Sycamore Township, Ohio, 45236. And I'll just show you the latest pictures. Yep. So we're getting tall weeds. This property does go back very far. I guess I will say that sign is gone. I went and took that down. So, but immediately adjacent to this property is it is a private road, but there are numerous residential properties that back up to this. These weeds and the encroachment, the creeping over the fence, they're posing continual problems for these neighbors. So we're trying to stay on top of this, but we're just going to have to keep hitting it over and over again.
Well, I move we approve the resolution which you've presented as to this property.
A second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Okay, the next resolution is for 7572 Montgomery Road. This is an inoperable vehicle in the, this says driveway, but I'm going to call it a front yard. It is a paved piece of the front yard. So, let's see. The owner of the property has been unresponsive. This vehicle is actually set there for quite some time. The plates on it are from 2019. I'll read this and then go to the pictures. I have for you a resolution providing for the removal of junk motor vehicle in Sycamore Township, Hamilton County, and the proper disposal, storage, or impoundment of motor vehicle by implementing the procedure set forth in Sycamore Township Resolution number 2012-14 and sections 505.173, 505.85, and 505.871 of the Ohio Revised Code.
I move we approve the resolution Mr. Miller presented.
Second.
Motion is second. You want to bring up the pictures?
Yes, sir.
Question also, you've got a vehicle owner listed on here. Is that also the property owner?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
No. Ms. Tate's from Westchester, that is not the property owner.
Okay.
So, again, plates are from 2019. I believe there are at least 3 flat tires on this with panels. It appears inoperable to us and meets the criteria of state statutes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Anything else, Skylar?
That's I think you've heard enough out of me tonight. I'll I'll just move on
Okay.
with our section.
We'll accept that. Next item on the agenda, Sheriff Patrol Report. Sergeant, good to see you.
Nice to see you, sir. We have nothing to pass on from the Sheriff's Patrol this evening.
Okay. Roads Maintenance and Recreation Report. Sitting in tonight is Steve Rue, the chauffeur.
All righty.
Oh, excuse me, I just skipped you, Chief, didn't I?
Chief first.
Let's go back. I thought you were sleeping overnight. Let's go to EMS and Fire.
One quick thing, getting about the time of year for Halloween, do you guys want to still do the Halloween candy?
Yeah.
Okay, so and we'll purchase that for the fire department and the sheriff's department, so we'll take care of that. The next thing I wanted to just give you an update on, as you know, with the hurricane in Florida, the Ohio Task Force was one of many task forces that were mobilized to that area, and with your support, Jeff Newman and Bill Fitzpatrick were part of that team from our department, so they're down there now.
Okay.
They rolled out Saturday with 22 vehicles, 4 boats, and 4 K-9 units. And there's 14 teams, 14 task force teams that were activated to go to Florida, Ohio, Montana, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, 2 teams from Texas, Indiana, 2 teams from Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So all those teams have been activated. Each team has 35 to 47 personnel. And there's also a incident support team called an IST team out of Puerto Rico that was deployed there. So they started out with 4 K-9 units. They're called HRD teams, and they started out and they dispatched an additional 18 K-9 units to that location. The teams, they wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they're briefed by 6 o'clock, and they work all day till dark. The Ohio Task Force itself has searched over 1,400 structures. They've rescued 88 people from their homes that were underwater. They've been searching marinas that are residential boats that have been stacked on top of each other and partially submerged in water. Last night was their first time, they went out Saturday, last night was their first time to get portable toilets, and they made a shower hooked up to a fire hydrant. So they've been showering off of a fire hydrant. They've been basically bounced around between Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and San Carlos Island. So they're there now. They've been working every day, and they usually do a 14-day deployment, so maybe by next Monday they'll be back,
Great.
depending on
Great.
how things are going.
Happy to participate in that.
The team member, the team leader from Ohio Task Force reached out to us and thanked the trustees for your support and letting them participate in that, because they got all hands on deck down there. They need everybody, so
Great.
we appreciate that. That's all I got.
Okay, any questions for the chief? Okay, you're now up, Steve.
I'd like to start out with a Parks and Recreation report. On Tuesday, September 27th, the Special Events Committee had their meeting. During that meeting, they discussed the 2022 events, movies in the park. The committee discussed the low attendance and not much interest from the public. The other subject that they discussed regarding the 22 events was music in the park. Committee discussed the attendance at the concerts, and they feel there is definitely a public interest in music events. They also discussed possible 2023 events. Those were music in the park, a festival, pollinator event, and Halloween event. With those discussions of future 2023 events, the committee went ahead with 3 motions for recommendations to the trustees to consider for 2023. The first one was to discontinue movies in the park events. The second one was to reinstitute the festival in Sycamore. And the third one was to continue music in the park.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go on to roads report. If you guys have any questions or anything?
Yeah. So those were motions that were made, correct?
Yes, those were motions made by the committee, those 3.
So, I mean, I would totally agree with the discontinuing of the movies because I attended almost every one of them, if not every one. And, I mean, if we had 10 or 12 people there, it was costing us $1,200 by the time we were all done, and it just wasn't working out well. As it relates to the festival, I'm in support of reinstituting the festival. I think it's a great 2-day family event. I think that we can probably do that economically by working with, I do know that Jason mentioned to me that there's one gal on the board.
Lisa Hodge.
Lisa, yeah. And Lisa is interested in working on sponsors. And so I would like to take a look at that and see if we can't reinstitute the festival. The thing is, we need to do that kind of quick because a lot of these bands are being bought up already and booked up and for next year. The casinos have been a lot more active with bookings for these bands, and so if we're going to do that, we really probably need to do it relatively soon. I guess the other thing would be who's going to organize it and who's going to run it. We had Mike McEwen do it in the past. I don't know if Mike would be interested in coming back and doing that again for us. Just as a 1099 employee. Okay. We probably need to go after that. And, Tracy, I don't know if you've had any conversations or if you've heard whether if you talked to him at all or.
Well, Mike's mentioned to me in the past that he would have interest if we ever brought the festival back. I don't think he wants to be in charge of the whole festival because it's so much work, but he just mentioned in the past that he would like to work with the bands, the band part of the entertainment, the stage.
Which is kind of his bailiwick.
Kind of like, if you remember back when we used to employ Johnny Shop
Yep.
to do all that. I think that's the kind of thing that Mike would like to do.
Okay.
Not run the whole thing.
Well, I guess I would recommend that we have some conversation with him and possibly just to see if he's interested in doing it. I mean, I don't know who we go to if he's not interested. But we probably ought to get some pricing and get an idea what it's going to cost. And I think it would be good to have a conversation with Lisa Hodge just to make sure she's still on board to do the to work on sponsors and make sure that that she's fully engaged, because it will require, in order for us to keep that at a reasonable price, it's going to require a lot of good sponsors. So. Maybe if by the time we have our next meeting, if we can report back that where we're at on that, that'd be great. Anybody else have anything?
I was just going to say, again, I think, doing, if nothing else, some back of the envelope math from a budget perspective fairly quickly is probably pretty important for us to understand what those costs look like in 2023. I can't believe I'm saying 2023. And the cost of the bands and availability of them, I would agree. I mean, bands are booking up quickly, and we also have two new music venues down on the river as well that are also filling their rosters quickly. So I think understanding who's out there, what that cost looks like, as well as all of the other attendant event costs, would be a pretty quick task for the committee and the appropriate staff members to help build, so that we can take a peek at that. And I think sponsorship is going to be key. Would be key to reducing our costs, and I think that's something that really needs to be looked at as well.
Okay.
And I appreciate all the work the parks folks have done to put on the 2022 events and then consider what the outcomes of those have been for 2022 and adjust for 2023. So I certainly appreciate all the work and input and thoughtfulness they've put towards that.
As you can imagine, I have some thoughts about a festival. First, though, I will say the movies in the park, yes, attendance dwindled this year, it looks like. So that was an experiment originally during COVID to get people outside and have something for them to do as a group. I think we had a little more attendance the first year, but yeah, if people aren't turning up for it, there's no point in doing that. It was an experiment and a relatively inexpensive one in the grand scheme of things. The music in the park, I think, has been very successful. Some of the bands have been very popular, so I'm glad the committee's interested in continuing that, and I think the board will be as well. The festival and the thoughts about that, as you all know, I think my first interest in the township was in looking at what the festival was costing us, and the peak year, it cost the taxpayers a net $180,000 to put on the festival, and I think that's unreasonable. I don't think having a festival is unreasonable if we can do it with proper sponsorship, keeping the costs under control. My preference would be, if we move forward with that, though, that we do local bands, similar to what was done at the food truck rally this past year, for example. I just can't stomach paying $60,000, $70,000, whatever, for a bunch of people who perform under the name Jefferson Starship but weren't even in the original band. And that's what you often get with these expensive name bands, where they're trading on the name and playing the music, but heck, it's not even them. I don't know that we need to be paying casino-style prices for that sort of thing. I think the committee should also Parks Committee should also look at doing it with local groups too. I think a lot of them have big followings, and people like to come out for the other events that's going on there too. So maybe we can do it that way in a much more cost-effective way. So I'd like to see proposals as to that also. Mike McEwen did great things with the festival before. I was sorry he left before, and if he'd be willing to come back and help with it, I think that's great. He knows how this thing works. So I think that could be very useful. But I do think sponsorship and keeping costs under control is key, so that we're talking in the tens of thousands of dollars, not the hundreds of thousands of dollars net cost to the taxpayer for this. Even the tens of thousands, just philosophically, I don't think government should be putting on festivals. We're competing with the churches anyway on that and other groups. But historically, it's been done here, so if we can do it in a way that is cost effective, I think that's great. Let's see if we can find a way to do that. So I'm glad the committee's interested in that. I hope Lisa will stay involved in that and spearhead some of this too.
And just for the record, over the last 10 years of our festivals, I think the average was right around $70,000 a year. So we had a blip towards the end because the casinos got so engaged in booking these bands, and that's why the cost went up so high. But I think our 10-year average was around $70,000. So I think that's a reasonable number. It's a 2-day event. It's a family event. It includes rides for kids, which are subsidized by the township. They buy a bracelet for $5, and they can ride as many times as they want. And I think it's a great family event. And when I did talk to Jason, there was a thought about possibly using some food trucks like we did for our food truck event this year, or the food truck event, because it wasn't really ours. And I think it's a good idea as well. So we possibly could merge something together to make that to make that work as well. So I'm in favor of it. I think we should, as Tracy has suggested, I think what we need to do is get the math together first and make sure that we're that we can afford to do it, and engage Lisa in hopes that we can engage her in getting some good solid sponsors as well. And hopefully at the next meeting you can bring that back to us, some additional information. Okay. Anything else, Steve?
Quick report on roads. Our township curb and resurfacing program back in Kenwood Meadows. We have good news on that, which I'm sure Rob's interested in.
My neighbors will be in it.
Yeah, they've been great, by the way. They've been very patient and very...
It's safe to go home.
It's
safe
been great.
Safe to go home.
A few have been very vocal on social media with their opinions.
Yeah. So paving is scheduled to begin tomorrow, actually,
Ooh.
and will continue tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They're going to work and finish up Monday next
Nice.
week.
Nice.
With final restoration of any yards and that to follow. So good news on that. The project should be wrapped up by the end of next week. Larchview Drive and Plainfield Road project. The Larchview Drive, the contractor will be out on Larchview beginning paving the base course Monday, which will be October 10th. That will continue throughout the week, paving, and after that, restoration of concrete driveway aprons and sidewalk will begin. Project is scheduled to be completed the end of November, which would include the resurfacing and restriping of Plainfield. Good news on the grant update. As you guys recall, we put in for a SORTA transit infrastructure grant application for Euclid Avenue sidewalks from Michael Drive down to Osbrook. We were notified by SORTA that our project did rate high enough, and they will be taking that recommendation for funding to the integrating committee the end of the year. And if the integrating committee approves that, we will be getting about $700,000 in grant funds for sidewalks along that stretch.
That's really great.
That's awesome. That's great.
It's really needed there.
So
When would that start then, if that went to?
we would start that, we would have to get the plans finalized, and probably late '23 into early '24 would be probably a safe time frame. With a little luck, maybe sooner, maybe closer to the end of fall next year.
That's great news.
So the project was estimated at $996,000. So it's a 70-30 split. Township receiving 70% grant funding. That's about all I have for now. Just Donegal Drive head wall improvements. Scheduled to start here in a couple weeks as well. So,
Where are we at on the Gideon?
oh yeah, Gideon Lane. Tom, as you know, I know you were working with a lot of our residents out there on some of the concerns they have. We have addressed all that with our consulting engineer.
Okay.
Where the engineering firm is finalizing the plans, and we will be hopefully going out to bid end of this year with construction early '23 on that.
Okay, good.
Same with the Montgomery Sidewalk project, Stewart Road to Ken Arbor. The consultants finishing up the plans. We'll go out to bid hopefully in December with construction in early '23 on that project as well. So we're
I know
gonna be
Cincinnati-
busy. It's going to be a busy
yeah.
start of the year next year as well.
Cincinnati Bell is dying to get into that neighborhood with fiber, but they can't do it until that Gideon project's done, so
That's
I've gotten a
correct.
couple
Yeah.
calls from them.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
One thing, Steve, you
Yep.
might want to mention the fiber going on out here, because there may be a lot of residents.
Oh, yeah. We have, I believe there is actually 3 fiber projects going on within the Kenwood area. One on Montgomery Road heading south or north towards Galbraith. There is one on Galbraith Road heading east towards Montgomery, and then Duke Energy has a fiber job starting down in Oakley, winding its way through Sycamore Township. Through the township here, it's basically going down from Stewart Road down Montgomery to Kenwood, north on Kenwood, all the way up to Cornell over to Grooms, north on Grooms to East Kemper to the Duke Energy plant
Okay.
up on East Kemper Road.
Gotcha. Okay.
So some kind of a special communication fiber that Duke Energy needs to communicate between the two
Facilities?
facilities.
Good.
Yeah. So
Okay.
people see some underground work, that's what's going on, a lot of underground work going on in the Kenwood area.
Okay.
Yep, if they have any questions, they can call us and we can point them to the proper authorities and get answers for them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Law Director report, Larry.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is administrator report. Skylar, you taking that?
Yes, sir. I can fill in for one night, I suppose. The first item I want to talk about is we've been notified by SORTA that they are they're proposing a study for bus rapid transit. They are currently holding open houses across the region. Essentially, they are proposing to implement 2 routes at this time and maybe adding later. There are 2 routes in the rapid transit study that that come into Sycamore Township. So we have the Reading Road corridor going up 42 from downtown Cincinnati, and then we also have the Montgomery Road corridor again going up Montgomery Road, and from basically the map, it's showing it'll go up Kenwood Road, turn at East Galbraith, and come back down down Montgomery Road, or vice versa. Whatever.
I think it was a counterclockwise.
Yeah,
plan.
they're essentially making a loop around around the mall and in the collection. So I have I offered to attend some of these open houses and just essentially give some input, and I'd like to take this opportunity to get some of that input from the trustees. I didn't realize until I was preparing to talk about this tonight, but because of Columbus Day, I do have a scheduling conflict on the 11th. Normally I would have a zoning commission on the 10th, so I was going to have night meetings the 10th, 11th, and 12th, but now I have a scheduling conflict. So we'll have to figure out how to get coverage for the Reading Road meeting on the 11th.
Steve, might you be available to take one of those?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I may be able to attend that too. I'm actually on the committee providing input to all of this. This is something I mentioned a few weeks ago in our meeting, and thanks for getting the visual of the graphic up here. The Reading Road map, I think the original map didn't take it quite up into the township. It got pretty close within walking distance, but if they go higher, that'd be great. So.
Yeah, based on, let's see. Yeah, and I do think you're right. I do think it is terminating just a little south of the township, but it's certainly within the the larger regional Reading Road corridor study area. I do actually see a lot of benefits to the Reading Road route. If we are working with our partner municipalities and the county as well as the port to reinvigorate this corridor. We're setting aside a lot of land for industrial development. It would certainly make sense to provide a transportation for a potential workforce. So.
One of the reasons why that may not go all the way is because most of that property is vacant just north of there. So the edge of Rose, if it goes to the edge of Roselawn, there's really not a whole lot of other people to serve. However, this would be a real impetus to allow us to continue to move forward and develop the property the 30 acres or so that we do own over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm strongly in support of this Reading Road one. I think it's great, and if there's a choice between Reading and Montgomery, I would definitely choose the Reading Road because of the importance to how it facilitates our development up there. So
I would agree. There seems to be a lot of value there. And I think, Skylar, to your point, the entire Reading Road corridor partnership with our neighboring municipalities. There is a strategic vision for that general corridor. This seems to dovetail nicely
Yep.
with what they're trying to achieve there.
So, and I will be reaching out to the corridor group to see if I can get input from them as well, that, they're in support of the Reading Road
Good.
route.
Okay.
Okay. Then the other section of this, actually, Mr. James, do you have a take on what the potential priority is for the initial?
They're not really at that stage yet.
Okay.
They're presenting this, they're doing the public meetings, they've got the maps, and this is effectively, as bus rapid transit, it's effectively like deploying a rail system in a sense, but it's redeployable if it doesn't work out, or you can easily add or subtract from it. But they're still forming ideas on this right now.
I think the one thing when I was looking at this, if you click over to About BRT, if you go, no, you just start there. If you go into, if you look at the second paragraph there, where it says BRT uses frequent service, limited stops, smart traffic signals, and dedicated bus lanes where possible. So that means whatever road these are going on, theoretically, they're taking a road lane for their dedicated service.
They're certainly going to put a lot of infrastructure in already congested right away. I have more concerns about Montgomery Road because of how limited the our ability to improve our Kenwood area right away is at this point in time. Especially if you're talking about raised curbs, so there's same level entry. I've seen some of that infrastructure in downtown Cincinnati. I don't necessarily haven't seen any plans, but I don't really have a good vision of how that would really work in Kenwood along Montgomery Road. It just seems like a lot of buildup that's only going to add congestion.
Check with me later. I've got a presentation they shared after the initial presentation to the committee, which had some prototypes and some examples from other cities as to how some of those things might work. I'll share that with you.
Okay.
I think it's important to understand from our business stakeholders how they feel about this as well, and our residents, quite frankly. We hear frequently about congestion, and I drive it twice a day, and I get behind the existing buses that travel on Montgomery Road.
Sure.
So the notion of taking out a lane permanently in any section of that to provide for 15-minute headways
so far.
is highly concerning from this resident who travels that road twice a day. It's hard to flow through there during, and I don't see people standing there every 15 minutes. Let me put it that way. I think the existing service that we have is good and meaningful, and probably could be optimized to serve, the particular day part or timing or what have you. I'm not sure 15-minute headways coming up Montgomery Road is, and Kenwood Road for that matter, is necessary. But perhaps Metro stats speak otherwise. But I think that's something that we need. I think we need to get input from our business community and our residents for sure. And both of these corridors, quite frankly. I think it's important in both the corridors, but I think that the Reading Road corridor makes a lot of sense. We have the ability to accommodate for such development should dedicated lanes be desired in that corridor more so than Kenwood.
And again, so far they weren't discussing dedicated lanes. They were talking about buses doing express service on existing roadways, for the most part at least. So express buses with limited stops, I think. So I might have put the wrong image in your head by saying like rail. It's
well, no, I'm just reading from their own website.
No, in BRT systems in other cities, they have done dedicated lanes too, but not taking away existing ones. So I certainly wouldn't want to see them doing that either. Most people have cars, and that's going to be the way it is for a long time.
If they're running every 10 to 15 minutes, I think you'll see the participation similar to the streetcar downtown where the thing's just running and nobody's on it.
That may
Because
well be.
10 to 15 minutes coming up Montgomery Road, especially with some of these big buses they're showing here, I doubt they're going to get any kind of participation, and worth bringing them up every 10 to 15 minutes. So, I mean, I think the message, I think, is what I'm hearing from the board is, we're interested in that Reading Road. I mean, I think it would be good to engage the Reading Road Corridor Group and make sure that they're all on the same page, which I'm pretty sure they will be.
Okay.
And so I think that would be really beneficial to us, probably much more so than the Montgomery Kenwood.
Yes, sir. All right. Yeah, I'll do some fact finding from the open house standpoint. Mr. James, you're going to share some info that you have. Okay. And we'll disseminate it
And
out.
Steve will fill in when you can't make it.
Yep.
Steve will fill in with it.
Yes, sir. Sorry, Steve. Didn't mean to throw that on you. You owe me one. I owe you one.
See what happens when you come to these evening meetings? You get more meetings.
I owe you a Tuesday lunch.
Usually you volunteer people who aren't here. Purchase orders over $5,000. Looks like we have two.
Yes, sir. The first one is PO number 22-109-7. This is a blanket vendor in the amount of $7,990.45 for contract services with the fire department. Okay. Next one is PO number 22-165-13 for World Fuel Services in the amount of $20,000 for fuel for police, for sheriff's department.
I move we approve the two purchase orders presented.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwedman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Is that it on the administrator report?
We are certainly looking forward to the appointment of our new administrator. Tomorrow, I'll make sure that he has a new hire packet on his desk. There'll be an orientation in the morning in case he's not familiar with our culture and practices. So,
Good.
other than that, that's all I have.
Should we
Keep 'em on
drive
track.
around the township?
Yep. We'll give him a tour.
Keep them on track.
Might be a rock he hasn't flipped over before.
Make sure everybody wears name tags so he knows who,
Yep.
so he knows who they are.
You know who he is.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda, fiscal officer report. Mr. Porter.
Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to announce my retirement from fiscal officer effective February 1st, thereabouts of 2023. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the township for over 23 years, but in discussions with my family, I feel it's time to give this opportunity to somebody else to have the privilege of serving the citizens of Sycamore Township, and I thank them for giving me this opportunity for 32 years. I'm announcing it tonight because I want to give the trustees plenty of time to advertise for a replacement and pick. I'm sure you'll pick a good one, and I also pledge to the citizens and to you folks that I will, whoever you choose, I will work closely with them to get them acquainted with the office. I'll introduce them to our accountants, our investment people, the various stakeholders the township has, and make it as easy a transition as possible. I came in the same way. Somebody, actually it was Doug Miller, took the law director's position before I came in. And it was very helpful to have somebody kind of acquainting me with what was going on, how things worked. And I pledge to do that with whoever you folks choose to take my place. That way the person who's you all appoint will be able to run as an incumbent, And, I think it's, believe it or not, it's a fairly important position, and I can't do it forever, so I'd like to, have the transition be as smooth as possible and following my retirement. So, thank you to the citizens of Sycamore Township for electing me all these years, and thank you for all your support over the years. So,
Thanks for all you've done, Rob. You know, I've butted heads sometimes, but no one doubts your dedication to the township, and I appreciate all you've done. So thanks for your hard work.
Okay.
Exciting for you.
Yeah,
This is great.
Hard for us,
Yeah.
exciting for you.
Is Nancy excited?
well, that's part of where I don't know that I had another whole term in me, and I don't mind giving it up early to. Obviously, I didn't get rich doing this job, so I plan to continue practicing law for a few more years and then retire from that too. It's been a great ride. I never aspired really for anything else, but it was great working with everyone here.
Well, Rob, we
13 years.
appreciate your dedicated 32 years of service, your 32 clean audits, most importantly, and
Hopefully, I have one more in me.
yes.
There you go.
we need one more in you.
Yeah.
I think that if you're talking about February 1st, I think we should probably be in a position to interview people and announce who we want to fill that spot by our, typically in January, we have one meeting and not two. I talked to Debbie and Beth, and it looks like we can continue to do that this year and still meet all our requirements on paying bills on time. So that meeting would probably be the 17th. And by then, hopefully, we have the ability to interview people and...
If it becomes a problem, I can stay to March 1st, or,
Okay.
It's not set, in stone. If you need an extra month, but I just don't want to do it forever.
Yep,
So-
gotcha. Well,
I'd like to give you a deadline, and then
Sure.
hopefully you can keep
And
to it.
if February 1st would probably be a good deadline, would give the new person an opportunity to get his feet wet before he has to run as
Right.
well.
Or her.
Or her.
Oh, yeah, or her, yeah.
Yep.
I appreciate your willingness to help
Coach
up the next person, so to speak.
Well,
and-
there's a lot of introductions.
yeah,
to
there's a
make,
lot.
Starting
Yep.
with Debbie and and continuing from there.
Yep.
And so it.
So you're thinking January 17th or December 17th?
January 17th.
January 17th,
Yeah.
okay.
So I think what we probably need to do, Tracy, is get this out with, we have a decent ability to get to our residents through either Facebook, the website, or Constant Contact. And so if we can get that out to people and try to identify if anybody's interested in filling that spot, I'd like to set up some interviews in December, and hopefully we can get resolution. I mean, in the past, we haven't had very many people interested in it, and so, if we have three people, four people, whatever, I think we can get those interviews completed and a decision in time to make a decision on January 17th. So,
And it does have to be a resident, so it's
Yes.
not something you
Yep.
open up to.
yep.
We'll get something together.
Okay.
Get it out about as soon as we can.
Okay.
I'll work with Rob and Debbie.
Perfect. Okay. Receipts and
Yes,
disbursements?
we had cash receipts of $378,978.38. Disbursements of $1,146,735.92. A complete listing of the receipts and disbursements is available in the packet.
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegman?
Aye.
Mr. Whedon?
Aye. Next item on the agenda, trustee comments. Tracy, anything?
I don't. It's been a full agenda. It's been an eventful agenda, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
Okay. It's good.
What?
This is an hour already.
I'm gonna keep my mouth
usually we're
shut.
20 minutes. Anything?
I don't get to say I agree with everything she
I'm not
said
going to be
again
the
this
one to
time.
push us over 8 p.m. Let's put it that way.
Well, I do have a few things. First of all, sunset today marked the start of the holiest day in Judaism. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. I'd like to wish our Jewish residents, I'll say this wrong probably, but Gemar Kati Ma Tova, which basically means may you be inscribed in the book of life for good. And also I wish you an easy fast for the fasting. Someone else pointed out to me that the Community Lighthouse Church of God on Sycamore Road here in Sycamore Township is providing free meals for those in need of it in October and November, and a free hot Thanksgiving meal. I have a flyer someone handed me here about this, but I'll just note that reach out to the Community Lighthouse Church of God at 4305 Sycamore Road if anyone's in need of that or knows someone who may be in need of that. We've got a new play structure in High Point, I understand, in the park. That's another Parks achievement. That's a good thing. I know there are some in the Sturbridge area who were itching for some new equipment in Bob Meyer Park at some point, too.
On the radar.
Very good, on the
We
radar.
got new equipment right here they
Yeah,
can use.
and back here, too. And yeah, I've seen a lot of people posting on social media about how happy they are about this, too. In our non-park park behind the building here. We need to make this a park one day. So that's what I got. Thank you. And thanks,
Okay.
Rob, for all your work.
Thank you. Okay, announcements, Columbus Day, our office will be closed in observance of Columbus Day on October 10th. Curbside leaf collection for residents begins on October 17th. And for all other items, you can check our calendar on the website. I want to make a motion to adjourn into executive session as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G1 to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, or compensation of a public employee with the Township Law Director.
I will second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter.
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weeder?
Aye. We will need Tracy Kellums, Larry, Tom, Tracy, Rob, Skylar.
And it's 8 p.m.
Okay, we are back from executive session at 8:10. Mr. Porter, please note all three trustees are present. Do we have any motions or business to further business?
I can present this, I guess. We have a resolution authorizing a contract for the township administrator, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency. And I will move we approve this resolution that I've just presented.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would like to say a few things. This approves a contract with Tracy Kellums, who has recently retired. And we've been through a process of a retire, rehire public hearing and taken public comments on that. This will hire him to the position of township administrator, which he has been acting as for the bulk of the year so far anyway here. For the public's reference, this contract hires him at his existing rate of pay under his current contract as Rose administrator, and we appreciate him agreeing to take on this role at that rate of pay. It's got a few changes from the prior contract in that the severance period that we hope never to have to use, and I certainly hope we never have to use it, is shorter than the old one. It's a little more reasonable to the taxpayers in my view in that sense, but I appreciate Tracy working with the township on that also. I'm excited about hiring you. You and I had a good discussion a couple months ago now, I guess, when you brought up this plan and worked through some things. And I think you've been doing a very good job as administrator, and you've grown into the role a lot. But you also know how the township runs, and you know where all the bodies are buried. And this is in your blood. So it's been a very good thing. I'm going to just remind you and the public of something I brought up to you in our meeting, and that is that one of the things we looked for in our search that we went through for an administrator, where we interviewed many candidates, and weren't thrilled with any of them in the end, and we've come around to you. But one of the qualifications we specified for this job is someone who's a member of ICMA. An ICMA credentialed manager is preferred. That's the International County and City Managers Association, I think. You're not a member of that from what I understand, but you and I did discuss the code of ethics for that. And I just think that's important that whoever is serving as the township administrator operate under that. You said you would take that into consideration when we spoke. There's a provision in there which says that the Members should refrain from all political activities which undermine public confidence in professional administrators, refrain from participation in the election of the members of the employing legislative body. I know that's been a big part of your life in the past, and I'll just note you'll be moving into a new role as we go about approving this, and I hope you'll be mindful of that and all the other things in the Code of Ethics. I'm looking forward to working with you as administrator. Those are my comments.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Long retirement.
Hope you're well rested.
Ground right.
And I don't believe there's any other business. We will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
A second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.